Hey, today's homework is going to continue from last week's homework and is all about weathering and erosion. The procedure here is the same as last week. Write summaries at the end of each section using the video or the transcript or both. If you've misplaced your transcript, you can find it under the following website. Again, bring the summaries in next Tuesday. The topics covered today will be weathering, the 3 types of weathering, and erosion. So, what is weathering? Well, weathering is a fancy term for the process by which rocks break down into smaller particles. Nothing lasts forever, and rocks aren't an exception. In fact, rocks are wearing away all the time. We just can't see it happening because it's a very slow process that takes place over thousands of years. There are 3 types of weathering depending on the weathering process, and these are called physical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering. Our first type of weathering is called physical weathering, and as the name suggests, is caused by physical changes. So this can be anything from temperature changes, freezing and thawing, as well as wind and waves. When it's hot outside, rocks expand a little, and when it gets cold again, rocks will contract. If you keep on heating and cooling a rock, cracks will start to appear, and little pieces of rock will start falling off. A good example of this is in deserts, for example, the Namib Desert in Africa. During the day, the temperature will rise to above 40 degrees centigrade and then cool down at night to 20 degrees centigrade. Do this over years and years, and you'll start getting cracks in your rock like the ones in the picture. After cracks have appeared in the rocks, water can get trapped in the cracks. When the temperature outside is cold enough, the water in the cracks will freeze. Freezing liquid water into ice causes a volume of the water to increase by almost 10%. This means that it's expanded, and this expansion can force a rock apart and cause a crack to get even bigger. Once the temperature rises again, the ice will melt back and the rock contracts. Do this over a long period of time and you'll get huge cracks. Your rock might even completely break apart. Now, if we move towards the ocean, we'll see another kind of weathering. Here, the wind can pick up grains of sand and blow them against rocks. Waves can also hit rocks and wear them away. Now take a few minutes to write a summary on physical weathering. Make sure to mention the effects of temperature, freezing and thawing, and wind and waves. Include the key terms expansion and contraction. Once you've done that, move on to chemical weathering. The second type of weathering we'll look at is chemical weathering. Chemical weathering is all about chemicals and how chemicals can change rocks. Rainwater is naturally slightly acidic because it contains dissolved gases including carbon dioxide from the air, so when it rains the chemicals react with the minerals in the rocks. Some rocks react faster and are therefore weathered faster. For example, limestone and chalk are both made of minerals called calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate reacts with acid to form new substances, so when it rains, a chemical reaction will occur on the rock and any new substances that are formed are washed away. This leaves the rocks weathered. An example of a rock that is not weathered as fast is granite. Granite reacts very slowly with acids, so any weathering will happen over a long period of time. The chemical reactions that happen with granite will make the original minerals in granite into weaker minerals, leaving bits to crumble off. Acid rain is different from rainwater. Rainwater is naturally slightly acidic, but acid rain is even more acidic. Acid rain happens when fossil fuels are burned, releasing sulfur dioxide and more carbon dioxide into the air. This will then dissolve and come back down to Earth as acid rain. Acid rain can weather rocks very quickly in comparison with rainwater. Many statues have been damaged by acid rain. For example, the Statue of Liberty is actually made out of copper and would have once looked like the top image. But over time, acid rain has caused a brown color to change to green, and people are constantly needed to renovate the statue from damage. Once again, take a few minutes to write a summary about chemical weathering. This time, make sure to mention how acid rain is different from normal rain and why it's more acidic. When writing your summary, give an example of rocks that weather fast and rocks that weather slowly. Once you're done, move on to biological weathering. The third type of weathering is biological weathering. Biological weathering is all about how plants and animals can break up rocks and lead to weathering. Plants can cause weathering of rocks when roots grow inside cracks. The roots start to grow bigger and bigger, and at the same time, the crack widens further and further. When the crack is too big, the rock breaks apart. This is happening all the time underneath the soil, but when roots grow big enough, they can even break rocks on pavements. Animals can also cause weathering. Some animals burrow under the ground and scratch rocks in the process. Animals that do this include rabbits and prairie dogs. Furthermore, acids in animal waste can cause weathering too. Again, write a summary, but this time on biological weathering. This one probably won't be so long, maybe a few sentences. Once you're done, move on to the next section, which is erosion. We've almost reached the end. Our last topic is erosion. Erosion is a process that occurs after weathering. So, if step 1 is weathering, the wearing away of rocks, then step 2 is erosion, the movement of the pieces of rock from the site of weathering. For instance, weathering will lead to pieces of rock falling into a river and getting transported away. If a river is flowing fast enough, large, heavy rocks can be transported. But if the river is flowing very slowly, it can only transport small and light rocks. During erosion and transportation, pieces of rock can bash against each other, causing more pieces of rock to fall off. This is called abrasion and is what leads to sediment, which is a little piece of rock or sand that you find at the bottom of the river. Your last summary for this homework should be on the difference between weathering and erosion. How are they related? Make sure to mention transport of large and small rocks as well as abrasion. Once you've done that, you're finished. I'll see you next Tuesday.